So this video is going to be a little different from my usual videos in this playlist, as we're going to be talking about getting the brain ready for work, getting it into the zone and keeping it in the zone. This is something that I've struggled with over the years. It's gotten easier since I started working at home freelancing, but it still has its challenges. There's always something pulling at your attention, right? There's like your social media feeds, Netflix, video games, naps, that sort of thing. And there's even more temptation at home than there is at the office. So you got to take every advantage you can get. So we're going to talk about something called brain priming. Okay, so what is brain priming? Now, I'm not a psychologist. This is just kind of my take on it, obviously. But you know how when you watch a scary movie, and for the next couple hours or even the rest of the evening, every dark corner needs a second look, and every noise and bump and creak you hear in the house means something. The same sounds you've been hearing and ignoring for months on end now indicate there's some kind of serial killer trying to break into the house, or there's a demon in the basement trying to find its way upstairs, right? That's brain priming. By watching the movie, you've put your brain into a mental place where it can interpret input and stimulus in a specific way. So how does that relate to 3D art? Well, I've been experimenting for the last couple of weeks with watching 5 to 10 minutes of modeling tutorials before sitting down and getting down to actual work. It doesn't matter whether I already know how to do what the video is showing me. The only thing that matters is that the video is relevant to what I'm going to be spending the next few hours doing. So I try to theme it. If I'm doing high poly modeling, then I'll watch a design and high poly video. If I'm doing UVs, then I'll watch an unwrapping video, that kind of thing. But what I find is that if I spend that short period of time at the start of the work session, it gets my brain into that particular zone. And when I start working, I can hit the ground running. It's just like, let's go, right? And usually within the first 5 minutes, I'm ready to stop the video and get to work. But take all the time you need if you give this technique a shot, because it's obviously going to be different for different people, and it'll evolve over time. You'll need less priming to get going, but I found it to be very useful for hitting the ground running and being productive straight out of the gate. Now that leads directly into talking about zoning, or you need to be in the zone. We've all heard that phrase 100 times. It's a very common topic for videos like this one. So what I want to talk about is staying in the zone. The zone breaks for me whenever I don't have defined boundaries around what I'm doing. Like, for example, if I'm working on something and just working away with no end condition in mind, then my mind will start wandering. I'll be working along, then I'll start thinking about Facebook, or what I'm going to eat for dinner that night, or my inbox, or whatever else happens to float through my head, right? So how do I prevent that? With boundaries. Now, one easy way to define boundaries for something like this is using time boxing. Time boxing is simply defining an amount of time you're going to spend on a task. Sounds obvious, I know. But which is generally easier as a freelancer, because your contract will say how many hours per week you're supposed to be working for this client. So you divide that by 5, and that's how many hours per day you need to be spending on this project. Easy. Now let's say I box out, say, 4 hours a day for a client. That's a good chunk of time, but I can't do that whole chunk of time in one sitting for various reasons. Everybody will have their own reasons for not being able to do that. Mine are primarily physical. My body needs regular breaks, or I end up in quite a lot of pain because of decades of sitting in front of a computer and not taking care of myself, right? So there's, my shoulder will start hurting, my elbow, my wrist, this whole chain gets irritated, right? So I need to take breaks. So I take that 4-hour chunk and I break it down into smaller chunks. Now, the way that I control those smaller chunks is with the pomodoro technique, and we've talked about this in the past, but a super quick recap is that you break down your work session into defined blocks of work, followed by a short break. So say 20 minutes of work and a 5-minute break. Rinse, repeat, until the 4 hours are done. Now, this has many different advantages, but what it mostly does is it sets up a trust relationship with your brain. A trust relationship means that your brain, you're making a deal with your brain. You're telling your brain, okay, if you will stay focused and engaged in this task for 20 minutes, then I will stop working and we'll take a 5-minute break. So with that defined endpoint, I find that I'm able to get my brain stuck into a task much easier and much more effectively. It kind of becomes a latch system after a while, because as soon as I start that work timer, my brain goes into focus mode. Not immediately, but very shortly after I start that timer, because I've been doing it long enough that I've built up that trust relationship. It's a powerful technique that can get you focused through even the most distasteful tasks. We all have stuff we don't like doing. Let's say you don't like doing the business side of things, or you don't like UVing, or you don't like doing whatever it is about your job. There's certain things we don't like doing, and by breaking it up into a defined time block, you can focus for 20 minutes, make progress on it, and then take a break, which moves that task forward. Despite the fact that if you were working on it normally with no definition around it, you meander around, you check your email, you go on Facebook, you chat with somebody in the hallway sort of thing, and you would elongate that task to probably 2 or 3 times longer than it needed to be, simply because you didn't want to be sitting there, right? That's where priming and zoning can really help you get more done during the day, no matter what it is you need to be doing. Now, if you've been following along, you might be thinking in the back of your head, what am I going to do with all those 5-minute breaks during the day? I mean, I can only get coffee so many times. I can only wander around my little office here a certain number of times before I get bored of looking at it. Well, for me, what I do is I take those little time windows as opportunities to do things around the house, or do stuff that needs to get done, right? Stupid stuff like loading the dishwasher, making coffee, cleaning something, moving something, answering an old email, or whatever, right? Or stretch. Stretching is good for you. Just stay in your chair and do some shoulder stretches, or whatever it is. Whatever you need to do to get your body and mind ready for the next work block, do it. My personal take is that doing something not at the computer is the most advantageous thing I can do, because it gives my brain that that separation. But obviously you'll have to experiment to figure out what works for you. So that's it for that technique. Hopefully you can apply that to your work day, and hopefully get some value out of it. I found that it really has improved my productivity, which allows me to get more done during the day, which allows me to have much more fulfilling evenings and weekends, because I'm not stressed about what could have and what should have happened that day. So have fun, and thanks for watching.